All right, you race baiting clowns. How's it going? All right, guys. Well, someone got triggered the last time I made this request, so do not forget. Please like and subscribe on the video, on the channel, because it would be the end of the world if you didn't do that. But no, seriously, if you actually enjoy what I'm doing here, please leave a like. Also, please subscribe. I'm on my knees now. Please. Just please, man. Oh, dear God. So anyways. No, actually, though, if you guys actually want to show that you appreciate what I'm doing here, remember, I'm doing this channel for you guys so that I can get out to you and say, yo, I made the freaking solution to the woke media and the woke storytelling that we have today. I made the solution and I made it for you guys. All right. So I do these videos for you guys because I made my books for you guys. Everything we get nowadays is gay and feminist. All right. You have no one else that is the solution or a proper solution. You know, maybe someone's like, hey, look, I have this random book with a bunch of gay people in it. That's really conventional. Am I right, guys? You're all into dudes. Am I right? What's up? So, anyone single and free later? I am the alternative to wokeness in media. So, if you're fed up with that guy, I mean, if you're not fed up with him, I guess he'll just be a sodomite. But, you know, if you're fed up with that dude telling you, hey, look at my crappy fan fiction, then okay, pick up my freaking stuff. All right, Queen's Festival. Oh yeah, Charles Arlington on Amazon, but the books, Queen's Festival, Umbral Stalker, Dark Fantasy. Queen's Festival is a kind of classical fairy tale. It's a mixture of things. It's action, adventure. It's a bunch of freaking crap. Anyways, it's a longer book, but anyway. And then we have Realm Lords Apocrypha, which is basically grand fantasy, which is a thing that doesn't exist yet, but now it does. Then we also have Invincigirl. So if you're looking for something to laugh at and have fun, it's a super heroine that takes herself very seriously. So anyway, pick up one of those books. Share me your thoughts, you freaking queer. Anyway, so we're here. Andy Meon has my inside reporter. One of my inside reporters has recently reported, and I've decided to go public with this already public information. He's recently reported on some information. Apparently, Assassin's Creed Shadows Defenders, you mean Shills? There's a lot of Shills nowadays. Demand Japan sit down and shut up. Well, you know, that's what they do to anyone that stands for their country, because if you're not a nationalist, then that means you're a good person. You're a good person, whatever the frick that means. But if you are a nationalist, then you must be tried for your crimes and publicly executed. And that's how the left, that's how they think. So we're going to be going with this video. We're going to be going at 1.5 times speed. I might speed it up just because I like it fast and loose, just like my women. My women with a bunch of tattoos who are definitely whores, and they smell really bad.
There is more stuff
I love women that smell really bad.
Going on when it comes to Shadows, and at this point, it's getting ridiculous how much online discourse keeps coming out of this game and the various fights that it's causing across the internet.
Bro, everyone's talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which, for me, you know, we've already done a video on that. It performed really well, by the way. So go figure. I mean, it did well, like, starting out. And I don't know how much better it's going to be doing moving forward, because is YouTube going to push that video? They should. We'll see about that. But regardless, I mean, I don't know. A lot of people are talking about it. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but I already discussed it, so I don't really know. I mean, maybe I'll cover it again. because there's a lot of stuff. The freaking Vavra guy, he keeps on talking and he keeps on trying to be gay. So again, if you guys if you like dudes, then I guess you'll keep on picking up all this woke media. But if you're into women or you're just not gay, then so asexual plant, then just pick up my freaking books. What the frick is wrong with you?
There's been an outcry claiming that if you dislike Shadows for not being historically accurate, that you are the problem. And there's people just straight up spreading misinformation and wrong facts about Assassin's Creed that I want to clear up so more people can understand. And hopefully, by the end of this video, you'll understand why the things in this video that are causing the outrage in the first place are such a big problem. So please, give me some of your time to explain all of this to you in as much detail as I can. So Shadows has rightfully caused a lot of issues for a lot of people. This time, the now viral clip of Yasuke desecrating the temple with his attacks has caught the ire of online influencer types, and it's causing a problem within a problem of itself. Fandom Wire did an article on this too, which is
Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. I mean, this is the game that they made. This is you freaking leftists never think that this dog crap will catch up with them. They never think like, oh, this looks stupid. Oh man. I mean, this is just perfect. Perfect wokeness 101.
Online influencer types, and it's causing a problem within a problem of itself. Fandom Wire did an article on this too, which is titled, "You Literally Control the Buttons You Press, Assassin's Creed Shadows Backlash, Yasuke Destroying Japanese Shrine Ignores Pope Brawl from Assassin's Creed 2. There's this gotcha, so to speak, that people are trying to push, claiming that you don't have to destroy the temple and the monument within Shadows and it's up to the player. While, like anything else, things are up to player choice, it's the fact of how Ubisoft has implemented this against their other games within the series. Then there was
This is the problem with people getting offended and people, oh, you need to listen to me, I'm offended. Oh, you need to listen to me, I'm offended. Is that eventually you just can't do anything. And eventually, you're holding your nuts because you don't have a wife that has double D breasts or triple G breasts like mine. So then you're like, well, my triple G breasted wife, because I don't have one, is not touching my balls. So I have to touch my own balls. And because of that, you're getting triggered for your own sake. And you have to hold your balls getting triggered because there's nothing else to do, because you're not allowed to do anything. Who gives a... Dude, I miss the days where gaming was super politically incorrect. I miss those days where you could just racially lambast anybody. Like, are you a squinty eyes? Look at you. You look retarded. Oh, man. And, say some even worse stuff than that. But, just sit there and just trash on people in their groups and just like, hey, you're filth and you're beneath life. I mean, that's not actually, but, anyways, it's close enough. I just miss the days of being really politically incorrect because it was just better back then. And now we have to dance on everyone's freaking fifis, but it is funny because like white Republican or conservative, I mean, one or the other, white conservative Americans were trashed on a lot about 10, 15, 20 years ago. And a lot of games, like for instance, Dead Rising did it. There's a couple of other ones. But of course, like if you're a leftist, it's not okay to make fun of you. But if you're a right winger, it's okay to make fun of you. So whatever. I mean, that's, if you're a leftist, you're pretty much safe from anyone trashing on you in media for whatever reason. Well, we know the reasons why. But regardless, it's just, games outside of that exception, games used to be offensive, and I miss those days. And it was never out of malice, and it doesn't matter if it is or isn't. It just used to be like, because it's just funny. Oh, let's make jokes about Asian people. Let's make jokes about blacks. And it was just funny. I miss the days where men made freaking products because they're not afraid of offending people. It's only women that truly do anything out of true malice. I mean, a dude, if he does anything out of true malice, he's typically a criminal. Okay, it's just that simple. But if you're not a criminal and you do anything that's offensive, it's not out of malice typically. It's like tongue-in-cheek, it's humorous, it's just to be a little bit edgy, but that's it. And like nowadays, everyone takes everything so painfully serious. I legit believe that everyone's more autistic than they've ever been. And by the way, of course, autism rates have increased, but I mean like even people who don't have through and through autism. Yeah, there's a lot of people that definitely have a shade of, I don't know what you would call it. There's a lot of people out there that definitely have an intense shade of autism, and I don't know what you would call that. It might just be latent autism is what you could call it, because whatever it is, you have a lot of people, they're not proper medical autistic, but they are definitely autistic. So I don't know what it is. I don't know. Is it Asperger's or something? Maybe. Anyways, these are people who take things way too serious, though. These are people, they can't laugh about anything. These are people, they overanalyze everything, right? It's like, oh, you can cut through a bunch of bamboo with a katana blade? That's ridiculous. It's like, it's a video game, bro. It's a video game. It's not real life. By the way, we discussed this in the previous video with Endymion, or yes, the previous Assassin's Creed video that I covered. So anyways, that I covered after my reporter went public with this already public information. Anyway, yeah, so people are definitely autistic now, and I just miss the days. I miss the days where we were super offensive. We didn't care. It was typically not out of malice, because malice did not matter in the conversation. It was just making jokes, whether or not that's politically correct. And now everything's politically correct. And we wonder why these games suck. We wonder why everything's worse now. We wonder why. Dude, when you go back to older games and you see how politically incorrect they are, you're like, this is what the frick we're missing now? Like, when you look back, you're like, whoa. Like, even Assassin's Creed and other games that are now woke from these woke companies, they used to be politically incorrect here and there. The Assassin's Creed 3 trailer has a quote at the end of it, and I cover it in a video. You can find it on the channel. It has George Washington on the thumbnail, but they literally have a quote by Marquis de Lafayette, which is, I'm trying to remember it. It is that insurrection is the most sacred of duties and the most indispensable of rights, is I believe what it is, or maybe I mixed up some of the words, but it doesn't matter. But it's like, there's literally a quote about, from our founding fathers, which Marquis de Lafayette is one of them. He helped out the revolution in the Revolutionary War with funding and whatnot. He was a French guy with a lot of money. But like, the founding fathers knew how important insurrection was, you know, especially against a tyrannical government. And by the way, that's the extension of the quote. When the people are oppressed, when there's a tyrannical government, insurrection is the most sacred of duties, indispensable of rights, that whole thing. And that's so crazy, because like, you think about modern day leftists, how they act like, oh, we are patriots and we're super all gung-ho about America. And it's like, you guys don't even know what the frick the founding fathers thought and believed. And when you do care about what they think and believe, it's so that you can twist their words for modern day egalitarianism, even though the founding fathers, everything that they thought and said, because they have a lot of quotes, they were not thinking of brown people. They were thinking of white people when they were speaking what they said and thought. So, anyways, but leftists, they love to use their freaking quotes for the sake of their modern day sentiments, the founding fathers, because the founding fathers said a lot of stuff about like equality. And of course, they meant equality not amongst brown men or black men, but amongst white men. Because multiculturalism, by the way, it never works. It does not work. It's freaking retarded. Right now, everyone's learning that. In America, people are learning that. It doesn't work. In the EU, holy mother effing crap, bro. They're gonna freaking erupt any day now. And I mean in the next year to 2 years, it's bound to erupt. There is going to be some massive implosion, because there's no way that they can survive what they're undergoing right now. It's getting bad. Like Sweden, I was surprised when I was reading up that Sweden, dude, they're dealing with insane crime from the Muslims. There's some people that try to say it's not Muslims. Okay, whatever. I mean, yeah, some of them are Indians, but okay, anyways, or Pakistani, but you know, like they're talking, but but Islam is a big issue, and it's spilling into the EU. So there's a lot of countries that are just it started with just a couple like England and all these places, and now it's another country and another country. I think Australia is now having problems too, by the way. I mean, this is just, there's no way. It's not going to work out. And yeah, like, by the way, the only way that you solve this is through violence. There's no other way. Multiculturalism does not work. And the more that you push it, yeah, well, the closer you get to the only solution, which is violence. So we're going to see it happen anytime now. And, well, they deserve it. I mean, you can't just storm into someone's country without expecting a fight. So, anyway, there's a lot more to say on all that, but let's just move on. So anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So anyway, I just missed the days when everything was really offensive because people could actually laugh and things were actually enjoyable. And nowadays we can't offend anything. And now, why do you think these games suck? Because it's politically correct and it's made by HR teams. These companies are held by the nutsack by a A-cup obese woman from HR who looks like an ogre. Okay, some disgusting mongrel creature is right now holding you by the nuts and saying you can't do this and you can't do that and that's offensive. Censorship canceled. You're fired. You can't work here anymore. We're gonna hire the queer that doesn't know their gender. Ah! They're gonna have your job. And when we make trash games because they're a trash employee, you're the blame. Be a bigot. And that's literally what's happened in every company now. I mean, it's so depressing. I mean, just bring back being offensive and bring back hating on people. I'm freaking fed up with this.
Player choice, it's the fact of how Ubisoft has implemented this against their other games within the series. Then there was this one tweet by this guy named Black Hokage, who I'm pretty sure was a part of the G4 Tech TV revival, and was a yes man for people like Frost when she single-handedly
love of God, this guy
destroyed that entire network with her feminist rant. Actually, let me check if this is the same guy. Yeah, this is the same guy. I knew it. A paid shill that cheerleadered for Frost when she did that whole feminism and gaming rant.
Golly, man. Leftists, they always look like they're low-key seething. There's something just off about them. I mean, of course, feminists are just, this is why eugenics programs are absolutely necessary. You know, people sit there and they're like, oh, I don't like eugenics. And by the way, people only say that because they were told to say that. But it's like, I'm sorry, do you like what you see here? And like, everyone believes in eugenics. They're just too afraid to admit it. It's like selecting the best people in a population for continual breeding so that you have the best population imaginable. Wow. It's not like women only want to get with the best of men. They never get with these dudes, by the way. Women want to get with freaking Chad. Okay? So women love eugenics, by the way. Just keep that in mind. They love eugenics, even though it's not politically correct to say so. Who cares? Men do not like busted up looking chicks. Men like the most beautiful of women. That's why they're massive simps for hot chicks. Everyone likes eugenics. Everyone, even people who are born ugly, they wish there was a eugenics program that the freaking parents selected them to be beautiful through. It's like, wait, you're telling me at birth my parents could have selected me to be hot and gorgeous or just like a freaking Chad? Well, frick. Why didn't they enlist? What the frick? I mean, no one that's ugly, no one that's undesirable, no one that looks like a seething on the inside individual leftist. Nobody wants to be this. Nobody wants to be this, even though they cope every day with being this. Like these people don't want. They wish that they had eugenics. They wish, and then on top of that, they wish. They want to get with someone that is a result of eugenics. It's just freaking retarded. One of the greatest propaganda campaigns that's ever existed is telling you that there's something wrong with eugenics or that, and like, again, like everyone believes in eugenics. It's until you're told that you can't believe in eugenics. Then you say, oh, I guess not anymore. But everyone believes in it. Everyone wants it, including the people who are ugly. Not including, especially the people who are ugly, especially the people who are not the most desirable. They're going to be sitting there and be like, I'm sorry, there was a program that could have fixed me. What the frick? By the way, a part of eugenics is also having healthy people, okay? Also selecting for the best genetic health. It's just ridiculous. It's everything, the best thing that anyone could ever want biologically. That's what eugenics is. And then these mother effers, they sit there and they're like, oh, it's just such a big quandary. Why? Because a leftist told me it's super immoral. Who gives a freaking crap what the leftist thinks? Love of God, man. Like, again, I look at this and I'm like, why is there no eugenics program?
Alright, this already tells me where this is going anyway, but here's what he tweeted about Shadows. The force hate for this game has reached comedic levels. You, the player, chose to do that, so you can push your agenda. Now you all care about religion. You kill the Pope in Assassin's Creed 2. Where was the anger then?
Bro, anytime a black guy gets freaking logicking, reasoning, anytime a black guy starts talking, wait a second, you say this, but you say that. Every time, it's always half-wit for no, I'm sorry. It's retard logic every time. Every freaking time. It's always some broken English, typically. If it's not broken English, then okay. We also include, this is typically the permanent, what do you want to call it? Trait or modifier. No, it's not even modifier. This is the perpetual, permanent status of black arguments, which is always broken logic. If it's not broken language, because that's typically an added modifier based on the individual, but typically the immutable characteristic, anyways, typically the permanent status of any black guy talking is always broken logic, because they always say retard stuff like I mean, I've seen someone say something as retarded as this, literally, and of course they were colored. They sat there. And by the way, just pay attention. Like, if you're ever like, I wonder if that's true. I don't care what you think. But anyways, you know what? Forget that. This retard. You know what? Who cares about the retards? Screw them. Anyways, but you have freaking black dudes. This is the way that they think. They literally sit there. If you say, I didn't say this, by the way. Someone said I said this. I don't care. I get also another thing about blacks. They love to make up things that you never said. So anyways, outside of that though, they'll literally sit there and say stuff like, oh, you said that you don't like video games. I'm sorry. You say you don't like horror video games. You say you don't like horror video games, which is something I never said. Okay. All right, let's just play to the hypothetical. So I said I don't like horror video games. Oh, no, actually, in this case, yeah, because there was a lot of twisting with the words. So, but this is the specific line of thought that they were following before the EBT monkey went out of their way to make the rest of their bogus argument. Said, you say that you like horror games, but then you say, and this is why I'm getting twisted up, because I actually don't like horror video games. There's some of them I'm okay with, but I don't like horror games. And I've said that many times on this channel. But someone just makes up that I said at some point that I like horror games, which I don't. Screw you. And then I say that I don't like horror movies. And they said, you sound like a dishonest individual. Which, by the way, even if I hypothetically said that I like horror games and I don't like horror movies, yeah, someone can do that, you stupid buffoon. Sorry, monkey. You stupid EBT buffoon. What the freak is wrong with you? Yeah, you can like action video games, but you don't like action movies. Oh my gosh, bro. It's like, how stupid do you have to be? But this is the thing. So anytime you hear some of this like really retarded reasoning and logic, oh look, oh wow, melanin. Okay, makes sense. But and like the amount of times that you have to see this before you believe it, it's like, okay. I mean, again, like it's so funny because leftists, they'll see something that's true multiple times over and they'll be like, that's not true. It's like, okay, I mean, like, okay, that's also not, you know what's also not true? Your freaking mother gave birth to you. Your freaking father did it, retard. Anyways, so here we are. Oh, man. Oh my gosh, bro. The freaking retardation is unbelievable with, again, as I said, autism. It has to be like something that is just a huge norm nowadays because so many people speak and think autistically. It's unbelievable. But anyway, yeah, so anyways, I mean, that's just something that happened. I had someone make up what it is that I thought and said in one of my videos, and then it happened to not be the case. I don't say that stuff. And then they used broken logic against me. So then this guy, I mean, this is always something with blacks, though. They always do this freaking nonsense where they take some kind of premise that someone may or may not have said, and then they use broken logic to twist the premise to their conclusion. That's every time. That's always what they do. And then they say there's no difference between races. Wait. So the forced hate for this game has reached comedic levels. You, the player, chose to do that so you can push your agenda. Lamau. Okay. Your laugh. Oh my gosh. And this is the other thing about blacks. Whenever they're coping and seething, they always make it about lol, raffle, lamau. Because laughing to them is disproving your argument because they don't actually think. Again, EBT monkeys, these freaking people, they don't actually properly think. This is why they do this. This is why they make a lousy argument. This is not even an argument. What you're literally doing is you're just identifying stimuli, information. Oh, I see a cat. And you think that cats smell? Lol. Dude, it's crazy. That doesn't make an argument, bro. You can play it up all you want. That doesn't make an argument. So you identify stimuli. Then you say that people, typically they make up the claim or they make up what people are, because they also do this. They also like to exaggerate or, again, just completely fabricate what people are upset about. And really, it's what you think they're upset about, which is not being honest as an individual. Oh, remember that word, honesty, which someone told me I wasn't being honest when I wasn't being dishonest. But okay. Even in the hypothetical, I wasn't being dishonest. So you're just a retard. But again, EBT. But it's like, this is what they do. This is what they do. And then they laugh because they don't actually have a proper argument or rhetoric. So all they do is laugh. And by the way, these are the first people to tell you that you're not intellectual. You're not intelligent. You don't actually have proper, they don't understand the word rhetoric. It's too big for them. So then they just say that you're just not smart. These are the first people to tell you that you're just not smart enough to be heard or listened to. Bro, the EBT squad is some of the most detestable filth. Anyways, it's just like, you could be better, but for reasons, it seems like you can't be better. So, okay, well, I'm disappointed in you. At one point, I had hope for them, but whatever. And I don't know why he says, oh, okay. But now y'all care about religion. So you can push your agenda. Now you care about religion. That has nothing to do with that has nothing to do with the conversation. Wait, wake up, Ubisoft Defender, and hear our voice. What kind of Assassin's Creed game destroys an actual religious site? Japanese culture is consumed but receives no respect. Yeah, there's a lot of Japanese games that don't allow you. I'm sorry. There's a lot of Assassin's Creed games that don't allow you to destroy religious sites, I think. I don't remember, but I think the point is, for one, this is a Japanese guy saying this. So now y'all care about religion. I mean, okay, I don't know what the actual religion of Japan is, but oh man. I mean, see, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sense of it for him because he can't make sense of it for himself. And this is just retard. This is just retard logic. Now y'all care about religion? So what, you're saying that Japanese people don't care about religion? Because yeah, I think a lot of them are atheists, but it doesn't matter. They still want to respect their culture, respect their history. Even if they themselves are not religious, they might want to still have admiration for the religion and for the ancestry of their people. And, Japanese people should be Christian, screw your religion. But, outside of that, because God all the way. But outside of that, I don't even know who this. What do you mean, y'all? I mean, are you talking about anti-wokers? Or are you talking about Japanese people? I don't know what he's talking about. This is the issue. I have no idea who you're speaking to, but okay, you're saying this nonsense. So now y'all care about religion, which, yeah, it's their culture. They don't want the game that should have, the main male character should be a Japanese man. They're upset that a black guy is running around in Japan destroying or just desecrating the people or the location, whatever, disrupting the peace of a religious site. Yeah, how does that not make sense to you that would piss them off? That this game, there's so little that respects Japanese men about this game. How do you not understand that? Listen, I don't give a crap about being offended on the behalf of anyone. But let's just be honest. This game they're trying to pander to blacks through a Japanese game, which is absolutely ridiculous. And that's really the problem here. But you know what? It is disgusting that they're trying to be social justice warriors, and then you're able to do stuff like this. That's the premise here. This is stupid and ridiculous. Yeah, get used to it, guy. Apparently you can't take it that people are upset that a black dude is in a freaking Japanese game pillaging Japanese culture and people. Yeah, how does that escape you? Oh, that's right, you don't care. You think this is acceptable. That's why you don't care. You are complicit with the nonsense that is going on here because you are woke. That's why you don't care. This is stupid. And I could keep on going here, but no, I'm done. I'm done after that. Just done. So now y'all care about religion. Who are you to determine the frame of what people are going to be pissed off about? This is a logical conclusion as to why people are upset. This isn't random and retarded like a leftist and a lot of stuff that they get upset about. Pillaging religious shrines is not, well, oh no, you could pillage churches actually in Valhalla. Yeah, and I wasn't a big fan of the fact that you could pillage Christians. I did not like that. So actually, so maybe you can do that also in this game. Now I'm remembering. I don't think there was any other previous game because I don't think you could actually do that. I don't think you can lay waste to other temples or anything in previous games. I mean, yeah, you can loot chests inside of temples in what was the freaking game? Odyssey, Assassin's Creed Odyssey or whatever. You can pillage temples, not pillage, but you can go inside, sneak in and loot stuff, but that's it. I mean, it's not like desecrating the culture or anything. I mean, you want to look at desecrating culture. Yeah, Christians were pillaged and ripped apart in Valhalla. Now, I think that was actually historical, if I'm correct on that, because there was actual problems between paganistic Nords and Christian Anglo-Saxons during that time before the Nords were turned into Christians, which, again, Christianity is the way to go. Screw you, Nords. But I mean, this is different. This is different than those other games. Even though I'm not happy, I know that liberals were jerking off about killing Christians in the previous game, Valhalla. This is different because we're trying to treat Yasuke like he's a part of Japanese society. That's for one, not as an invading force. Even though, I mean, nowadays there's a lot of invading forces in a lot of countries. That are, low in melanin, but, that's outside of the point. I don't understand how people are so stupid. They don't understand. I'm done. Dude, it's already been explained. You're just stupid. This guy's stupid. And of course, he's a great representative for freaking people because this is oftentimes how they think. So where was the anger then? Oh, wait, you killed the Pope in Assassin's Creed 2. As an Italian man, you're not some outsider coming in just like, oh, screw Italy. And no, I mean, the idea is that the Pope is corrupt. I didn't play. By the way, I've never played Assassin's Creed 2. I played a lot of other of the Assassin's. Okay, it was everything before Assassin's Creed 3 that I never played. So I think that includes Revelation, Brotherhood, 2, and 1. So anyways, moving on. But like my understanding, because like this is how all the games typically work, well, up until now, but for the longest time with Assassin's Creed games, it's that the Templars are just, this is fiction for one, we're not in real life. The Templars are dudes who hold corrupt positions of power within well-known positions throughout history. So it's not you killing a pope, it's not you trying to kill Catholicism as a religion or disrespect it. It's that there's a dude that's a part of this evil institution, evil organization. That's the idea in the game. And he's undercover or whatever, right? He's a pope that is a part of the Templars in Assassin's Creed 2, and you assassinate him. Because that's the way it is in the other games, is that you have these guys who are part of these groups. They happen to be bad dudes with the Templars, a part of these different groups. And it's not so much about the group being evil, even though, you know, typically they're trying to make it out that certain groups are evil and the other groups are good. It's not so much about that group being evil, though. It's just about that dude being within the group. It's about the individual. You're not killing Catholicism, you're killing the Pope. So anyways, but this is about a religious shrine. It's not about an individual. But again, like, who cares about getting offended on anyone's behalf with all this? It's just like how you cannot separate collectives from individuals or locations from individuals shows the monkey brain that you freaking have, okay? This is freaking ridiculous. So where was the anger then? I mean, yeah, by the way, it was popular to hate on Catholics and hate on Christians for a good long time. And like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people got away with that. And it's freaking ridiculous. But I mean, we shouldn't get offended about everything, but it's just like, again, like, you're missing the point of why people are pissed off about this. And again, this guy is a Japanese dude who probably, the fact that he's upset that because he was sitting there, face palming his hands across his face for the fact that he got hit for hate speech. He was like, oh my gosh, I do not do hate speech. Oh my gosh. And it's like, dude, just say the N-word. Who cares? You know, so he might be more liberal leaning. It's very well possible. So maybe that's why he gives an F like this. I mean, who knows if this guy's anti-woke? He might be a lefty that's just upset about his own culture. I mean, I don't know. You know, maybe he's like, right? He might be like, what's the right way of putting it? He might be like, it's not culturally, but I get, he might be sympathetic towards censorship or something. I don't know. Like, he might be a political, you know what? Maybe this is really what I mean. He might be a politically correct kind of guy. That just might be what, so he's left leaning in political correctness. But he might, because Japan is not really a leftist or liberal country overwhelmingly, and I hope it doesn't swing towards liberalism, because it has been, but I think it might be swinging quickly back towards conservatism as far as I understand. But this guy might give more of a crap about political correctness, which is a leftist position, than other people. I have no idea where this guy stands. I have no idea. Shohei Kondo, no idea. But regardless, I don't know what you mean by y'all, because it's like, this guy does not scream to me as an individual that is trying to join a bandwagon. I have no idea what the bandwagon is with this guy yet. I don't know if he is anti-woke or whatever. I have no idea what his positions are. No idea. But it doesn't matter. I mean, like, this guy's speaking personally on something that's ridiculous and stupid. This guy is just completely looking past all the parameters of the conversation like a freaking retard. He calls real life losers. Oh my gosh. Dude, leftists always do. They always think that they can call anyone that does not ascribe to their politics as a loser. I don't have, this guy's a failure. This freaking dude, black, whatever, freaking black, dude. I don't need to say anything about this guy. Remember this with leftists, you know, I hate thinking in this way where you just randomly lambast people. Well, okay, well, hold up. I mean, I kind of meant what I was about to say, but it's like, hold up, let me actually like kind of more specifically word this. Okay, let me put it like this. I don't like randomly coming out with determinations on individuals. This is not a hard and real fact, but anyways, I don't like the way of reasoning and thinking where you come out with loose and fast determinations on individuals without a proper premise. You're saying this guy's a loser just because you have a difference of opinion. Now you are a loser for a lot of reasons, but you know, I would not be so willing to call this guy a loser. You're a retard because we already determined that your logic and your reasoning is monkey level. But now you're a freaking loser. For sitting here and speaking this way, now you're... See, this is the problem. Leftists never qualify their arguments. They never do it. Especially colored leftists. They cannot do it, you know, like, even if they tried. But they cannot qualify their arguments. So he sits there and says that this guy's a real life loser. Well, why? Oh, because you said so. Dude, I freaking despise leftists so much. But anyways, this guy's a clown. This guy's an absolute clown. But lucky for him, a lot of his people are like this. So, you know, they have a lot of company to have, a lot of company to keep with one another. Anyway. Oh, man. Yeah, this is just pathetic. But so the thing I was talking about is you have no basis for calling this guy a loser. And you didn't even qualify calling him a loser. You just want to call him a loser so that, oh, my words hurt you. You know what's more offensive than calling this guy a loser? What's more offensive is the fact that you didn't even have to qualify or think out your argument to call him a loser. You have no reasoning to your position. You did not qualify. You just said loser. You just lazily said loser. Without... I mean, you are lazy. You are a lazy thinker. You called the sun the moon because you're too lazy to call it for what it is, the sun. And you called the moon the sun. You called a cat a freaking dog and a dog a cat. You're freaking lazy, man. And that's what's so offensive about this. Like, people like this, they never trigger me based on their words because they're freaking retards. It's when you sit there and you just blatantly lie. It's when you sit there and it's like, this guy's not a loser, and you call him a loser. And it's like, well, how is he a loser? Well, you're a loser, bro. You're a loser. You're a freaking child retard, man. You're a freaking monkey. Look at you freaking EBT loser. Golly. They have no premise for, again, no proper argument can be made without a proper premise and therefore conclusion. Oh God, people like this, man, they tire me out. But I mean, this is how leftists think. This is literally how they think right here. You're calling him a loser over that. I mean, again, I don't care that you called him a loser because, right, it's retarded. But it's like the fact that you're so stupid that you can't even make a proper argument to say that someone's a loser. You know, you should actually believe onto yourself. I'm going to qualify my argument when I make it. That when I call someone a loser, I'm going to justify why I called them a loser. Instead of that, you call them a loser because you want your words to be violence because you're a leftist. So you want to hurt him verbally. And then you can't even properly think up your argument. I mean, you're just a freaking retard. Like, the second someone thinks like this, just discard their opinion. Like, leftists deserve absolutely nothing. I don't take them seriously anymore these days. You know, they'll sit there and be like, you don't listen to other people's opinions and their thoughts. No, you're just a freaking retard. So you're immediately discredited from the conversation. I'm not going to listen to you. I have, every time I've taken a liberal seriously on their position, I've always had to Iron Man their position because their position is useless on its own. Liberals and leftists, they never have a proper argument standing upon their own merit. It always comes down to you Iron Manning their positions. That's the only time that they ever sound legitimate, is because you made them legitimate. No, you're just a freaking retard. You don't know what the frick you're saying. You show that you don't have any rhetoric. I mean, you just deserve to just be silenced. Be silenced. By the way, leftists, they don't deserve the First Amendment because they're just pieces of filth, and they believe that everyone should be silenced. So just screw you.
Hey Black Okage, way to openly admit that you never played Assassin's Creed before because you're wrong in every sense. Let me explain why. Firstly, you can't stand there claiming to be on some high horse when you shilled for someone like Frosk, and was on programs being paid with known grifters like the complete
Yeah, he did stuff like, I mean, this guy's a freaking clown.
with his now infamous charity scams. But beyond that, you didn't play Assassin's Creed 2, did you? Because if you did, you would know that what you just said was factually incorrect in every single way. You don't kill the Pope in Assassin's Creed 2. I guess spoilers for Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood specifically here, but I have to speak on this because it's important. You defeat the Pope in Assassin's Creed 2 at the end, and then you meet Minerva.
Man, these graphics are rough.
Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood specifically here, but I have to speak on this because it's important. You defeat the Pope in Assassin's Creed 2 at the end, and then you meet Minerva, but you do not kill him. It's also very clearly stated that Rodrigo Borgia, that's the Pope's name in the game, was clearly aligned with the Templars the entire time. And the entire game, as in Assassin's Creed 2 I'm talking about here, is about Ezio killing
Yeah, he's aligned with the Templars, not Catholicism. That's a huge difference, by the way.
his way up the food chain to eventually reach the corruption that caused his family to die, which is, yeah, the Pope, Rodrigo.
Oh, yeah, and as I guessed, because that's what Assassin's Creed typically has storylines about, is corruption. It's not about, oh, look at Catholicism, screw these people, let's kill them all. It's about corruption, it's about... Anyways, as we've already
you don't
said.
kill this guy in Assassin's Creed 2, which Black Okage says you do, and you would know that if you played the game, which clearly you didn't, but are still claiming to do anyways. Which shouldn't really surprise me, considering this is an industry shill guy, but also you would know that when Rodrigo actually does die, Ezio isn't the one that does it. In fact, in Brotherhood, it's his own blood, Cesare Borgia, who becomes power drunk on finding the Apple of Eden that ends up being the one to kill Rodrigo. Cesare takes a bite from an apple while speaking to Rodrigo in his quarters, and unbeknownst to Cesare, the apples on display are in fact all poison to kill Cesare if he eats enough of it. Eventually, during the scene, Cesare is notified of the treachery to kill him, and Cesare, in his rage, forces the poisoned apple into Rodrigo's mouth, causing him to fall over on his back and hit his head. Remember that Rodrigo is an old man, so any kind of fall is, well, not a good thing, as we all know, for old people. And then the poison from this
Why is that? Why is that?
apple drips steadily into Rodrigo's mouth until he eventually dies from the very poison he tried to use against Cesare. Ezio does arrive on the scene eventually, although Ezio was going to Rodrigo in order to kill him, but obviously misses his chance, and instead closes Rodrigo's eyes and confirms that the Pope is now indeed dead. Again, you would know this if you played Assassin's Creed 2 or Brotherhood, but you clearly didn't. So you're trying to
Man, these character models are trash. What the frick?
use this gotcha of saying that you killed the Pope in 2 to ruin the plight of
I mean, this is good for the time, by the way. Isn't that crazy, though? So, like, this is good for the time that these games were coming out. But think about it. Ubisoft is terrible with mouth movements, facial animations in so many of their games. It's like, back then, for the time, this is actually pretty good. So for their time, back then, they were doing really good work. These are good animations for that time. But nowadays, it looks so much lazier.
you played Assassin's
Really
Creed 2 or Brotherhood,
weird.
but you clearly didn't. So you're trying to use
The
this
mouth
gotcha of saying that
movements
you
are better back in Assassin's Creed 2 than the games that we're getting today. Wow.
the Pope in 2 to ruin the plight of Japanese players here, but in fact,
Yeah,
you're
this
wrong.
is
And
better.
your facts aren't even correct.
Bro! Come on. Ubisoft. What the frick? Dude, they lost all their talent that quick? Holy crap, man. They've been doing... Oh, man. I mean, I think also as I remember, Assassin's Creed 3 is also good. It was once they got into like Origins and Odyssey, those games have terrible animations for lip movement and whatnot. Wow.
Really do not know what you're talking about at all. Again, I'm not surprised because you are one of those safe industry shill content creators on YouTube who will jump as high as these corpos tell you to. But if you're going to insult players, Japanese ones specifically, you should probably try to get your facts straight when you think you got some sort of gotcha. You're wrong, Okage. Not that you will admit it either way, but at least you've just told everyone that you know nothing about Assassin's Creed and have never played the games yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, that's what leftists... It's so funny because leftists, they always act like they know what they're talking about. And they love to sit there and be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you're making it all up. Oh, you're stupid. And then they're the ones that make everything up. Again, the problem for right-wingers is that they always Iron Man leftist positions. That's why they get away with everything. On top of this, right-wingers want to act like they're having a legitimate conversation with left-wingers. So you never assume that when they tell you, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, you never played the game. You never just simply immediately assume to yourself, hold on a minute. This is stupid. It's most likely that you're the person in this conversation that's never played the games and you're making everything up. And you're the liar here, right? Because they always do this. Like, there's so many times that leftists will project onto, for instance, me. And I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, what the frick? Like, I'll be told by a leftist, you haven't played a game that you've played. Like, I'll say, you know, I'll be talking about, let's say I'm talking about Remnant 2. And I'll be talking about the game, and then also I'll have some retard queer say, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never played the games. And I'll be like, the frick? And you have no idea. By the way, this has happened many times where leftists will tell me I don't play games that I've definitely played. It's really weird. So like they always make stuff up about you. It's really strange. And then, and like I've seen this happen for the longest time where leftists, they just lie about everything and they just make stuff up as you go. But it's like, it's weird because I never just first and foremost think that, oh, you're lying to me as you're speaking to me. Because right-wingers, they always think in a way, conservatives, they always think in a way where someone's being honest with you as they speak. Or that someone, as they're speaking to you, they're within their right state of mind as they're speaking to you. You always assume that. Oh, there's no reason why this person would just blatantly lie to me and believe their own lie. And then just pay attention for a little bit longer. Let them make a couple of claims against you, which is typically a bunch of random accusations. And you will quickly learn, oh, this is a retard clown that is literally a habitual liar. Everything they think and say is a lie. And the only way that they can win throughout an argument is by lying about you, towards you, whatever, and just making up claims and false accusations. This is literally the way that leftists think and speak. And this is why, by the way, there's no use in debating a leftist. There's no use in having a conversation with a leftist because it always ends in freaking disaster and ruin. Debating and arguing with a leftist is only made for ruin. It is only like wrestling with pigs, and that's it. There is no way to win. So when they sit there, because they'll also do this to you, they'll also complain like, you don't listen to other people, and you get triggered when other people have a difference of opinion, and you can't take they'll say like, you can't take criticism, and you can't take, what's the other one? You can't take feedback. They'll say all this nonsense. It's like, hold on a minute. No, you're not feedback. Hold on a minute. You're not criticism. You're just literally making fun of me for literally nothing. You're just making up that you're correct in this random. Again, you just make stuff up and then you argue. So they create a straw man and then they argue the straw man, right? Oh, you say you like horror games and then you say you don't like horror movies. Well, that's dishonest. Well, I never said I like horror games. I've been okay with some horror games. In air quotes, I've liked a few, but that does not mean I like all games. And again, even if I did, oh my God, these people, man, they're freaking retarded. And again, this is why, this is such a waste of time. Just ignore these people. Ignore them only so far as you still have to figure out a way, because they will do as much as they can do against you, right? If you ignore them, then they try to silence and censor you. It's like, right? It's like, if you ignore them, then it's like, well, I can't get to him by talking to him. So then I have to go after Microsoft. I have to go after Google. I have to go after all these other companies to silence him for me, right? They will do everything in their power to get to you. So you have to ignore them as much as you can also equally attack them. Because your best defense is what? An offense. So you have to be able to threaten leftists enough to keep them at bay, which is what, right? To keep them from trying to censor you or whatever else, all right? So you always have to be within power, within control. You always have to have authority above a leftist, or else, they'll always try to tyrannize you. It's just that simple. And this is why I say, there is no place for a leftist within any civilization. They are corrosive parasites, every single one of them. They reveal themselves so quickly. The second a leftist speaks, they should literally just be deported or publicly executed. It's just that simple. Death penalties. Like, you're a corrosive, vile piece of filth. You lie about everything. You literally slander, defame people. Like, everything you can think of that is a liar's will, okay? Slander, defamation, blatant lying, gaslighting, projection, all these random things. Just public execution, just enough, or I don't know, put tape over their mouth. I don't know, permanent super glue their freaking lips. I don't know, whatever it comes down to, just silence these people. Okay, these people not worth it. They're just not worth it. They're not worth the conversation. Don't freaking sit down with them. Don't talk to them. These are pieces of vile filth, and they will stop at nothing, until they absolutely win and absolutely dominate you one way or another.
Clearly. Yet another industry person who doesn't play video games. Color me shocked. Are we surprised by this? Not really, but let's keep moving. The general consensus that is the gotcha, so to speak, is that Assassin's Creed has never been historically accurate. Which in some cases, yeah, that is true. But it was depending on what
it's fiction.
Exactly was being bent in a historical sense, so to speak, in order to make the story work.
Yes.
For example, Ezio knowing people like Leonardo da Vinci.
They bent the story for creative exercise. That's it. Nowadays, they bend history for ideological exercise. Woke ideological exercise. Oh, look, a bunch of women fighting with Viking men. No, women got freaking pillaged and raped by Viking men. To believe that women can be equal warriors to men, it's like there's a reason why all throughout history, women were the ones that got raped and pillaged, raped during pillaging. There's a reason why. It's not because they're boss babes, okay?
And others at the same time, or how Connor seems to run into people like George Washington or Charles Lee and more,
is
probably not very likely to happen, but it's a fun twist because it allows you
It's an exercise of creative enterprise or creative will, not ideological enterprise or ideological will. Nowadays, they do it for politics rather than for creativity or imagination.
Player to interact with these real-life people that did exist during those time periods. A bad twist on history would be playing Odyssey and then finding a machine gun that lets you shoot grenades.
Yeah.
Obviously, this would be very stupid and completely out of touch with the time period. The only way that this would make any sense is if Alexios found an Isu artifact gun or something, but thankfully Ubisoft hasn't done that yet anyways. However, I do think when it comes to historical...
They did a couple of crazy Atlantis weapons, but yeah, they didn't do anything that insane.
Accuracy, you need to ensure...
But they did some cool stuff. There were things I really liked about Odyssey. Because there was a lot of ways to make yourself just insanely powerful with the DLC weapons and gear, but I mean, that was late game.
Right. For another example, I saw many people trying to use Assassin's Creed Valhalla as a gotcha against Shadows. How come it's okay to desecrate sites of worship and raid them like you're seeing on screen right now, but when Shadows does it, it's problematic? The simple answer is that the reason why Valhalla doing it is okay but Shadows isn't is because in Valhalla, you are obviously playing as a Viking warrior. And we know through historical texts, and you've probably seen it on the many shows or media that also depict Viking characters and their sagas, that the Nordic Vikings did in fact raid many villages and capitals across Europe specifically at the height of their power. And obviously...
Yeah.
We know that Vikings raided the hell out of England specifically, which yes, Valhalla takes place in primarily for good reason. So seeing Vikings raiding a holy site of worship within England and plundering it of its goods and resources is not problematic, because that is quite literally what would have happened back then by the character and the origin that they have that you are clearly playing as in that game. The problem with Yasuke doing it, well, for one, we already know that Yasuke's entire history was fabricated by a white man named Thomas Lockley, and that this guy did consult on Shadows, and we also know that Thomas Lockley has been exposed aplenty already for confirming that the majority of his so-called historical accuracy when it comes to Yasuke is nothing but a fabrication he created to push a narrative to sell books for profit. So in its entirety, Yasuke is not even really supposed to be there, nor be a samurai doing things.
Again, dude, like people never just consider that when they're talking to a leftist that they're going to be lied to. And this is the thing I'm having to get used to is like, like if I'm talking to a leftist, they're probably going to lie to me about something. And you know, you don't like to think that way. You would like to think like, oh, I can just trust this person in conversation. But it's like, when you see it again, like how stupid do you have to be that you see something happen more than 10 times? For me, it's been more than 100 times. How stupid do you have to be before you just realize, oh, wait, hold the F up. This is a trend. And like, that's the thing I'm having to get used to is like, you know what? Leftists, they lie a lot. Like they literally think that everything's smoke and mirrors. They always think that like, if you're sharing your opinion, they think that you're trying to like, you're trying to bait people, right? Like rage bait, like, oh, he's trying to get people upset and blah. It's like, no, like you live in a world where yourself included, people like you can't live with what other people think and say. So you always get triggered. And so you live your whole life concealing what you actually think and believe. People around you, because you're miserable filth, they are afraid to actually share what they think and believe. So all of you hide what you actually think and believe because you don't have one honest bone in your body. You don't have one honest day on this freaking earth. You live your whole life lying to people. You say that you're not racist, yet you are. And then, you try to grandstand on ethics and morality and act like you're a super good person, when in reality, every day of your life, you wish you could say the N-word, But, these are people, they live their whole life not being able to be honest and genuine with people. So then when they hear someone that's honest or genuine, they're like, oh, this person's probably lying, right? That's absolutely what they're doing. This is a charade that they're playing on. No, you just don't know what real life looks like. Oh man, don't even get me started, bro. Oh man, there's so much more to rage about. I'm so fed up with liberals, and like I've been having to tell myself and like remind myself, these people are habitual liars. That's literally what they are. And they will stop at nothing until they silence you. They will stop at nothing until they can control you. They'll stop at nothing until their corrosive ideological presuppositions are fulfilled throughout the world and reflected throughout the world. So I just have to remind myself so often now, like, oh, the second a liberal tells me X, Y, or Z, I have to assume that they're lying because, by the way, they typically are, or they're projecting, or what's a problem for them? They're trying to make it a problem about me, right? It's like, oh, you're such a bigot. And it's like, no, look in the mirror, buddy. Go screw. Oh, again, bigotry doesn't actually matter. But by the way, leftists, they're the actual bigots because they believe that they are always the one that will ride into a conversation on a moral high horse. They literally believe that their positions are unassailable and that nobody can question them or challenge them. There's no rhetoric, no reason behind it. They just literally think that their beliefs are superior to your own, despite reality. That is bigotry. Despite how smart, intelligent, or how well thought out someone that is your opposition is, you believe that your position's better than them, right? So when you believe that your esteem is much greater or much higher than what objective reality is, that is typically bigotry, or it's other things too. It's not just bigotry. And like, this is what I hate about bigotry, because like, this is what I hate about the English language or any language, is that leftists, you can use words and they will always use these words against you. They will always twist definitions against you. There's never a point in time to which you can just use a word and they will not weaponize it. So me now just calling leftists as proper actual bigots, now they, right? Like if we're acting like this is a discourse, now they need to figure out, because they never just sit there and be like, oh, you're right. It's always about coping and seething. So now it's about, well, here's how you're a bigot too, right? It's not about, oh, you're right. It's always about, well, you too, or well, actually not me. It's actually, you're the bigger bigot. You're the actual bigot. It's always a way to reframe or deflect. Oh my gosh. Oh, you realize that most psychological malice comes from the left. It's unbelievable.
In Japan. Again, for the 20th time, Yasuke was bought by Oda Nobunaga, saw Oda get overthrown by Akechi Mitsuhide, his general. Yasuke would then run away to Oda's son, and then Oda's son would commit seppuku at Akechi's behest. And then Yasuke was taken by Akechi and given back to the Jesuits, and he was never seen again and would leave Japan forever. That is, based on the only actual historical text that we have on the guy, the real truth behind Yasuke. He was about as much a real samurai as I am a real-life astronaut, which is that he wasn't, because I sure as hell haven't been to space. Any other claim told or pushed to spin a story about this guy is a fabrication. Sure, people will say, well, aren't every hero story in Assassin's Creed games a fabrication? Why is this any different?
Enough. Just shut the F up. This is what you tell them. Shut the F up. Everyone wants Japanese man, Japanese character, Japanese game. End of the story.
Difference here is that they are taking someone who has been historically confirmed to not be what Ubisoft says he is, and then making him that thing, a samurai in this case, despite him not being one. It would be like Assassin's Creed claiming that Genghis Khan was an airline pilot who flew all around the world, despite the fact that Genghis...
Bro, it's like we're always having literally listen to this. It's like we have to constantly educate leftists about real life. Oh, well, you see, it's kind of like if we said that Genghis Khan was an airlines pilot. Oh, it's kind of like if we said... It's like, dude, at some point, just tell them they're freaking retarded. Tell them they're freaking boneheads. Tell them to go chew on some rope. It's free, bro.
Genghis Khan, in fact, did not fly any planes because not to be what Ubisoft says he is, and then making him that thing, a samurai in this case, despite him not being one. It would be like Assassin's Creed claiming that Genghis Khan was an airline pilot who flew all around the world, despite the fact that Genghis Khan, in fact, did not fly any...
Bro, I mean, seriously, it's like educating your retarded younger brother how and why men and women are different. And it's like, wait a second, wait. Girls have XX chromosome, boys have XY. Wait. Women have different brains than men? Wait. Women have different anatomies than men? Wait. Men have different musculature and ligament and tendon growth and strength than women? Huh? Yeah, retard Timmy. Wait a second, men have more testosterone than women? Huh? And I think estrogen, by the way, is the same between... No, wait, women have more estrogen than men. But I think it's actually relatively the same. Well, again, men have slightly less. Unless you're a soy boy.
Planes because planes weren't invented yet, and that would be a lie, obviously. Claiming that Yasuke was a real-life samurai is ridiculous, and within the confines of this world that Ubisoft has created here, it's very important that they all...
Just call Ubisoft despicable filth. Why are we not playing as a freaking Asian guy, man? Come on. Why are we not playing as a freaking Japan guy? Squinty eyes. What the frick?
Always ensure that at the very least that the bare fundamental things are kept intact. Like I said in my previous video, Mirage is set in the Islamic city of Baghdad, so obviously having any women in power or women guards would be a deliberate change on Ubisoft's part that would be 100% factually incorrect. They didn't do that, by the way, which is smart of them, and it's why Mirage came out, and then people either bought it or didn't, and then time passed, and we all moved on. But in terms of Japan, you need to understand
whoa. What was that?
Was a real-life samurai is ridiculous.
The way
the
they...
confines of this world that Ubisoft has created
because Mirage was retarded. I mean, yeah, we had a woman who was in a position of leadership who had a chain smoker's voice. What the frick?
It's very important that they always ensure that at the very least that the bare fundamental things are kept intact. Like I said in my previous video, Mirage is set in the Islamic city of Baghdad, so obviously having any women in power or women guards would be a deliberate change on Ubisoft's part that would be 100% factually incorrect. They didn't do that, by the way, which is smart of them, and it's why Mirage came out.
Did he say they didn't do... Wait. Oh, do I care enough? Yeah, screw it. I don't care. What I heard is that they did do that because they did. They did do that. So he says that it was smart? I don't know.
Ubisoft's part that would be 100% factually incorrect. They didn't do that, by the way, which is smart of them, and it's why Mirage came out, and then people either...
They didn't do that, is what he said? No, there's a woman that's literally your mentor with the assassins, which is retarded. But we're acting like the assassins are outside of the region and the culture of the region. Whatever, man.
They bought it or didn't, and in time passed, and we all moved on. But in terms of Japan, you need to understand why this is so problematic. It isn't so much as saying, well, you don't need to break the shrines or desecrate the sites of Japanese gods. It's more so the fact that Ubisoft even allows you to do these things in the first place. Does that make sense? Ubisoft should have had the foresight to look at the region that they were adapting and go, okay, Japan is a very strict country when it comes to their ideals and customs. For an example, that happened just a few years ago to show you what I mean. You know the series Like a Dragon or Yakuza, if you're old like me? Okay, well, they made a spin-off series for that game at one point that was called Judgment. It was a game that used a lot of real-life people's faces and voices within the game. For example, the main character Yagami was based on the real-life actor's face Takuya Kimura, as you can see here with the side-by-side. Yeah, same guy. Okay, so there was this one other character, a villainous one in the game that's called Kyohei Hamura. Hamura was voiced and his face was based off the real-life actor Pierre Taki. Well, in 2019, Judgment was actually pulled from being sold within Japan when Pierre Taki was found in possession of drugs. Cocaine, to be exact. Pierre got caught, the police arrested him, and he was being prosecuted for facing up to 7 years in jail. Sega, in light of this, would pull Judgment and issue an official statement as IGN provided here. And eventually, in the coming months, Kyohei Hamura's face and voice were changed to erase Pierre Taki from Judgment completely, and then the game was sold again in Japan. Now, why the big reaction, you may be asking? The reason is because, like I said, Japan is clearly not like North America. They do not see drug possession or really any crimes of any kind as just an oopsie, so to speak, like other countries do. We've all heard plenty of stories of actors in America who have been...
Yeah, it should not be regarded as an oopsie. Man, there's so many things that America has become lax on that is just turning it into a hellhole. I mean, going lax on drugs? You have to be a freaking retard to say that drugs is okay in America and that it should be legalized. And that includes weed. Any of this freaking stuff, it's a freaking retarded concept that you should normalize this stuff because it makes any state in the country much worse off. More degenerates, more crime, more delinquency, more people just randomly being a disruption to the peace of society. Because of drugs. And just because some guy's a millionaire, because he does drugs, or I'm sorry, not because he does drugs, but he does drugs, and then he also happens to be a millionaire, right? Just because that one guy he's a paragon example. Just because there's this one random dude that can get away with it, because there are people, by the way, very few people are actually self-disciplined. They have no self-control. Or I'm sorry, there's very few people with self-discipline. They have self-control. Most people have no self-control and no discipline. Most people. This is why for civilization, having open access to drugs is a bad idea, because most people are not responsible. It's just that freaking simple. It's a stupid idea to allow people and be lax on it and just say, whatever. You can just have drugs. It's not a big deal.
And busted for drugs and other illicit acts, yet they don't lose roles and they just kind of keep on working. But in Japan, being caught doing or selling drugs is akin to basically being accused of murder, because again, Japan is very strict on their customs and traditions. You can disagree or not that Sega's reaction to Pure Taki was too much or not, but that doesn't matter, because if you're not Japanese and don't live there, you don't really have a say in any of this anyways. The point remains that Japan is very protective of these things. If you get caught doing anything illegal there, you're basically cooked is what happens to you. So why am I explaining this judgment story to you when this video is about Assassin's Creed? It's simple. It's to convey to you as to why these people claiming that the desecration of historical monuments within Shadows is a nothing burger to them, when actually it's anything but that. What Ubisoft has allowed the player to do here, whether you do it or not, the fact that it exists and it is allowed to be in the game shows their gross incompetence towards understanding both the historical accuracy of their game and the traditions and culture of Japan as a country. You may not see it as a big deal. So what if Yasuke can destroy some stuff? Of course, people outside of Japan would think this way, cause every day they probably see someone getting shot or hit by a car or places getting robbed in broad daylight, and it's business as usual to them.
Everyone.
Well, yeah, that's what happens when you elect for Democrats. And that's what happens when you bring in a lot of EBT people, a lot of melanated people into your country. Crime and violence just becomes,
But you need to understand
that becomes a very common occurrence. It's just the way it goes. You know, for people that live in non-melanated countries, they don't have to think about criminality, or widespread criminality at the very least. They don't have to think about a lot of violence and all this nonsense that goes on, because, yeah, there's racial differences.
not see it as a big deal. So what if Yasuke can destroy some stuff? Of course, people outside of Japan would think this way, cause every day they probably see someone getting shot or hit by a car or places getting robbed in broad daylight, and it's business as usual to them.
Yeah, because you bring retards into your country and you allow them to stay there and you don't do anything about them.
But you need to understand that in Japan, these incidents are considered very rare and are taken with extreme measures to ensure that they do not happen. If you get caught shoplifting in, let's say, America, it's maybe a slap on the wrist, but you would be cooked in Japan if you go out of line. This is obviously why whenever you see someone post online that, oh wow, I can walk around Japan at night and nobody harasses me. Yeah, dummy, there's a reason for that, because their country actually values the safety and goodwill of their citizens. I can't even walk downtown in, say, Calgary, Alberta without someone probably either hassling me or trying to kill me if I'm walking downtown at night, and I'm sure it's the same in other parts of the world too. The point is that the people trying to claim this is nothing are not
Melanated parts of the world.
viewing this from the perspective of a Japanese person or their culture. They are viewing the sacrilegious act of vandalism through the eyes of their North American experiences. And because of that, they are not only proving exactly why this must be called out, but they are also showing everyone how grossly out of touch they are when it comes to the concept of respecting other countries' traditions and cultures. For an example, when you enter a mosque, is it not mandatory to take your shoes off? Imagine if someone entered a mosque and refused doing that, and instead they ran past everyone, stomping their shoes everywhere, and then started to burn the books down inside. You would immediately understand that what was being done is clear. Ran past everyone, stomping their shoes everywhere, and then started to burn the books down inside.
Wow, that's a
Imagine
very
if someone
small
entered a mosque
man.
and refused doing that.
What the
And instead they
frick?
ran past everyone, stomping their shoes everywhere, and then started to burn the books down inside. You would immediately understand that what was being done is clearly a violation of Islamic traditions. But the only reason you would understand that is because you've seen the consequences dealt upon people even in the Western world for performing such acts in real life. A man literally died recently for burning the Quran in public, by the way, in case you didn't know. That's real.
In Sweden. In Sweden. He's burning the Quran in Sweden because he's protesting, because they don't really have much freedom of speech. But he's burning the Quran in Sweden to show that he opposes the occupation of the Swedish country, okay? And yeah, and also to say that he opposes all this mass immigration of these people who are not congruent to the Swedish country of Sweden. And then because he's burning the Quran in a country that's Christian, that's right now getting occupied and getting transformed into a Muslim country. Gee, I wonder why he's burning the Quran. Then he gets shot dead. And I don't know everything that surrounds that, because like there's obviously something more that's going on there. That's not just something that always happens, but regardless, that reveals to you the problem that's going on in these EU countries, these European countries, and the entire diaspora that it is. We are seeing a lot of these countries, they're getting invaded, they're getting occupied, and if you push back onto it, these mother effers, because every race is equal, am I right? These mother effers, they hunt you down to kill you. These countries are war zones now. And if you oppose the war zone coming into your country, you get targeted and assassinated, basically, or you just get executed in some way, shape, or form. That's what happens to you. Gee, I wonder why the people are against this. I wonder why that guy was burning Qurans. I wonder why. You know, if you go into an Islamic country doing that, I don't think that you should be immediately executed, by the way. However, it makes sense that there's going to be some kind of punishment, especially by the government. And if you're really brazen with it, then I could see in certain locations that could cause a lot of violence. But these people are storming into Christian countries, Anglo-Saxon countries. They're not wanted there. And people are doing the best they can to protest it. And when they protest it in the ways that they can find imaginable, they get killed by the invaders. This shows to you the war zone that these countries have now become. And this shows to you the problem. You are not escaping this. And this is why I say many times now, it is going to be an absolute war zone. The EU, one country after the next, they are going to plummet into absolute decay. It is going to be daily conflict and war. That is the only direction that they are headed for. Right now, Europeans, they cannot live their normal life anymore. I don't know how they're going to live with this. I don't know how they're going to make it through, but I mean, is going to turn into a nuclear wasteland coming up very soon. There's only a couple of European countries that are right now okay. But it's like, how long do they have, really?
Real, go look it up. So it puzzles me why these same internet types can see something like the burning of a religious text and immediately understand that, yeah, that's probably not a good idea, but are also not able to understand
No, it is a good idea when you're protesting people invading your country. Why are you twisting this? Their country's getting occupied and invaded by a different demographic, different racial group, different religion. And then when you protest them, in one of the few ways that you have available, you get executed by these people invading you. This is war. This is war.
What Ubisoft has done here is effectively the digital version of the very same thing. I asked the question, why is it okay to be disrespectful?
No. How do you make those two things the same thing? Oh, that's right. Being a neoliberal cucklord, that's how you do it. Because he identifies with being tolerant of all these other religions and allowing other races to storm into people's countries and transform the civilization fundamentally. Bro, how many Swedish people are going to exist in the next 10 years? Legit question.
Japanese culture, but not other ones. If you see this as nothing, you are simply failing to understand the problem here. It is not some gotcha people are trying to place to rile others up.
You're failing to see the problem here. Do not equivocate what's going on in Sweden. They are literally dealing with insane criminality right now, violence. It's not the same thing as a video game. Come on, man. Who are these people? How do you come up with this?
Up. It's a legitimate act of cultural vandalism and should not be allowed in the game. Whether you agree with that or not is void. The fact remains regardless.
Whatever.
People spit or
and the fact remains regardless that Muslims are storming into Christian countries, white countries, and transforming the population and killing people for opposing them.
Traditions or cultures of any kind. I don't think it's right as an outsider to comment on why it's okay to destroy stuff or vandalize the traditions or cultures of other people and then call people real-life losers like that Black Hokage guy did, who again clearly has not played Assassin's Creed to begin with. And you would have another person comment on this too who would say things like, you control the buttons you press. This is like Anita Sarkeesian dragging the bodies of stripper NPCs around.
Oh my gosh. You became what you hated. Oh man, leftists are so, again, just tell them to shut the F up. This is improper rhetoric. How you just do not understand. Oh man. And with retards like this, they don't see a problem with desecrating Japanese culture as a black man, even though they're leftists. And this is something that would trigger them, but because it's culture war, it doesn't trigger them because they pander to blacks. This is freaking clown world, man.
Round in Hitman, you guys became what you hated. No, this is not the same at all. You're comparing one culture and their lack of laws or whatever and the rampant crime against that of a structured society with thousands of years of tradition. Comparing the two is moronic and pointless, and you are just proving that your own gross incompetence at being able to sympathize or understand the rights and traditions of cultures that are outside of your own because you are not an active participant in that said culture. I'm honestly ashamed of so many people out here who have been blasting Japanese culture for being so up in arms about this. You are all failing to understand why this is not a good look for Ubisoft. It is literally if you could burn the Quran in Assassin's Creed Mirage. That's what this is. And if you could do that in the game.
Yes, in Assassin's Creed Mirage, because it's not Sweden. Let's be clear about that.
It would rightfully upset these very same people claiming that this is some grifter argument. But then, the same people could use the same argument against you as well. Well, you control the buttons you press and all that. But maybe...
But you know what? Like, there's nothing wrong in a video game, even if it's in a religious region, burning the Quran. You know, nothing is off limits in creative properties, in fictional circumstances. Nothing's off limits. Absolutely do whatever you want because you're making a story. But again, this is no longer about creativity and imagination. This is about their ideology. And this is about the premise of pushing their politics. It's about, what is it called? What's the term? This is about evangelizing for wokeness. That's really what it is. This is about evangelizing for egalitarian ethics. That's what games like these are now made for. That's the problem here. And how you have to be so stupid not to see that. And I specifically mean with the leftists, how they just don't understand the difference. Your games are most specifically now made for evangelizing your ethics. It is not about making a creative story, imaginative story. Offensive things should absolutely happen in stories, but that's not what we're doing anymore. We're not making creative products that tell a proper story. We're making creative products pushing and forcing an ideology.
Just maybe these things shouldn't be in these games to begin with. Have you ever thought?
No, it's fine. If you're being creative and artistic with it, and you're pushing a certain narrative with it. The problem is that it's now about coercion. It's now about politics.
That being the right way to go about these things. And before anyone starts to claim that Endymion is for censorship, no, this is not censorship. This is common sense.
No, it wouldn't be. And anyways, I don't care. Censor leftists. They deserve absolutely nothing.
And respecting the values of a culture that many of us are not 100% familiar or in tune with. Censorship would be me claiming that we need to cover up women and say Stellar Blade or something, which obviously I'm against that sort of censorship. Just look at my channel for many examples on that. But there's a clear line between what is acceptable versus what is blatantly being done to use someone's culture like a punching bag like this. And if you can't see the difference between why that is a bad thing, then you need to understand that before you comment on such things and brush them off.
Well, that means that they are a relativist and they believe everything to be equal, and that's why they don't understand the argument being made, because they can't see past. They have been taught, well, they've been told, and then I guess air quotes taught, whether or not you took the teachings is your choice. But, you know, they've been propagandized to not discriminate anything or anyone for generations now. So now people, they can't think in such a way where things are different, that races are different, that men and women are different, that when we're talking about these things, right, that apples and oranges are different, that cats and dogs are different. They can't reason this, that horror games and horror movies are different. They can't think that way because everything's the same nowadays.
That this is what leads to further examples of cultures not being respected in the future, which in turn feels ridiculous because these same people will scream from the rooftops about how things get appropriated by other people. But then it's convenient how it's only ever a problem when it's their culture that is the target of these damaging actions. But when it's someone else's, LOL, just get over it, shut, it doesn't matter, it's just a game anyways, you can't be that stupid, and this should never be normalized. I can't believe there's actually people out here defending this when we all know if you made fun of or did something like burning their country's flag, they would blow a gasket. Common sense is thankfully becoming more common, but right now this entire controversy has proven to me that a lot of these people are still lacking the critical thinking parts of their brains, and it's really sad to see how people truly don't understand why Japanese people are mad about this. This is why I wanted to make this video in the first place, to douse these idiotic flames.
Because they've been pushing for multiple years now that relativism is how you must look at the world, that you cannot discriminate anything, anyone, any people, because you cannot be discriminatory. That means that everything is the same. Everything is androgynous, that men and women are the same. You look at anything that leftists make. Go look at Eternal Strands, new game that came out recently. There's a bunch of examples for this, but they believe that men and women are the same. In Eternal Strands, the women look like aspiring men and the men look like aspiring women. That is by design. And also the creatures look like aspiring people. They hold themselves like people. They speak like people. There's nothing animalistic about them besides their phenotypes.
Things of terminally online weirdos who can't form their own opinions but just parrot what their favorite content creators say. I always tell you guys to form your own opinions. Do your own research and question anything and everything you see, because these days there's misinformation aplenty. Hell, even I got some things wrong about stuff like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I admit it, none of us are perfect. But this is not the way things should be going. Japanese players deserve their culture being respected by Ubisoft, and instead their traditions and customs are being...
Critically think for yourself. This is something that everyone used to be taught to do. They used to know how to do this. And now people just want coercion. Leftists, they always call for censorship. I'm fed up. It's time that we censor the left. It's enough. The right wing needs to reawaken and censor these pieces of filth. But anyways, but the left is the censorship party. And it's time to actually fight the censorship party. They will not stop until they censor you. So forcibly remove them either out of the conversation or out of your country. One or the other thing.
Being used like a playground by morons to perform sacrilegious actions within a controlled environment. We need to be better than this. We need to understand why these things must be addressed. Anyone claiming otherwise is just ignorant to the actual reasons. I really can't believe people are out here comparing Shadow's shrines getting ruined to Valhalla's raids. Like, my god, guys, read some history to know there's a difference.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. But again, these, freaking tards.
At least Google why Japan is so headstrong on their traditions. Let me explain another one of Japan's traditions that I already know Ubisoft would screw up if they tried to implement it. So there's a show out there called Shogun. In episode 5, Blackthorn, who's a British sailor, he's also one of the main characters, is handed a pheasant as a gift by Toranaga for training his soldiers in British naval warfare. Blackthorn then hangs this dead bird outside of his residence because back then people would let the dead animal almost rot, so to speak, before cooking and eating it. The reason why? Apparently because the meat would taste more ripe once it was cooked if the game meat was allowed to mature, so to speak, by hanging it outside like that. Again, don't ask me, I wouldn't
That is disgusting, but okay.
myself, but that's how they did it back then. Anyway, Blackthorn hangs this dead bird and tells his servants, who are Japanese and were given to him by their lord to serve him, to not touch the bird hanging outside his home. He tells them in Japanese, if touched, die. He means it more as a joke, but you need to understand that Japanese people, especially back then, saw things only in a literal sense. And honor was more important above any and all things. The basic lesson of episode 5 of Shogun is that Blackthorn severely underestimates the importance of honor within 17th century Japan with his words and actions. The village headman eventually orders Yujiro, who is Blackthorn's gardener and servant, to remove the pheasant because it stinks, which he does because he was commanded by someone of authority, but after doing so, Yujiro is reprimanded because he went directly against the orders of his master. In this case, Blackthorn, who said if you touch the rotting bird, you will die. This creates a moral conundrum that results in the other servants and Yujiro being distraught by the fact that he acted against the orders of his master, being forced to take his own life as payment for disobeying Blackthorn's direct commands. Blackthorn eventually returns to his residence mortified, not so much that his bird is gone, but that Yujiro, a gentle and kind gardener, would go to such extreme lengths for what in Black you will die. This creates a moral conundrum that results in the other servants and Yujiro being distraught by the fact that he acted against the orders of his master, being forced to take his own life as payment for disobeying Blackthorn's direct commands. Blackthorn eventually returns to his residence mortified, not so much that his bird is gone, but that Yujiro, a gentle and kind gardener, would go to such extreme lengths for what in Blackthorn's eyes was nothing but the removal of a dead bird hanging from a string. But this story in Shogun, and why I'm telling you this, is to convey to you the difference in how the West, in this case Blackthorn, sees a defiance of order, versus that of Yujiro, who obviously represents the East and Japan's customs. The Japanese as a culture are so intrinsically tied to their culture and traditions that
that seems so
eyes was
I don't know. That seems so unnecessarily complicated, but I think it makes sense. It just sounds really retarded.
Nothing but the
like that is needless drama.
Removal of a dead bird hanging from a string. But this story in Shogun, and why I'm telling you this, is to convey to you the difference.
Listen, man, there's a reason why white people, they just think they got ahead a lot faster. I mean, they were not concerned about birds like this. Just being honest. This is why the white man, this is why he made nuclear bombs and all that stuff. This is why he made freaking quantum computers, okay? It's because we were not so concerned about birds like this. Well, and then wokeness came along and now it's all over.
In how the West, in this case Blackthorn, sees a defiance of order, versus that of Yujiro, who obviously represents the East and Japan's customs. The Japanese as a culture are so intrinsically tied to their culture and traditions that defying their master's will in any way is punishable by death during this period of time. Now, whether you agree or disagree with Yujiro's actions in the show or the book, I guess it doesn't really matter, because how the Japanese gardener acted was how people saw in—
Yeah, something about Asian people is that they are a very obedient race. I've said this many times, is that white people are very ideological, or they're very even rhetorical. Historically speaking, rhetorical. Specifically, I mean white men. I mean women are just what the frick ever. But and also, I'm talking about Japanese men or Asian men. But anyways, because women, they don't drive society. So anyway, but Asians are a very obedient race. This is why they're very what's another way of putting it? Very they can be very complacent as long as they're obedient over an authority figure. So they're very oh shoot, there's a term I used, but I guess for lack of a better word, they're very compliant. I guess I could say that. There's a couple of other words to use. They're very well likely to defer to authority, and again, they're very compliant. So, especially towards the end group, of course. But yeah, with white people though, they're a very ideological race. So that's a very good thing when creating a government, right? And that's how white people, they made better governments than every other group because, for many years they were making multiple versions of republics until we get to America and we get to the first the Constitution, but also all the amendments, and also an idea such as the First Amendment, which is very vital. And I've already discussed this in the past, but like the First Amendment is a very vital concept for civilization as long as you adhere to it. And this is how white nations, white people, white men, this is how they came down to it, is just by the fact that white people are different than the other races, and they're much more, white men are, because they're the ones that drive their civilizations. White men are very, white people, very ideological. And so that's a very good thing because what does that mean? Ideological tied with rhetoric, tied with rationale, okay? So they'll think out their positions, they'll justify, they'll qualify their thoughts, their beliefs, their customs. And they'll think through, is this something that we're doing now? Is this the best way to be doing it moving forward? And they will commit to the most rational conclusions that they can create, and they will defy authority if it's sensible. Unlike how Asians think, where they're not as likely to defy authority. So that is a clear distinction racially between whites and Asians. Whites, again, they're much more fanatic about concept, about belief, about proof of concepts and belief, right? The rationale, the rhetoric, the argument behind what it is that you think and believe. Now, again, nowadays, white people have been retarded by female thinking, especially white female thinking, because white men, for the longest time, oh man, this is a whole larger conversation. Love of God, there's so much to go into with all this, but I'll just try to make this quick and short. But with white women, it's about rationalizing the irrational and becoming an ardent supporter of irrational rationalizations. So this is kind of the mangling, the depersonification, the dispossession of a prior ideal that merited many fruits, which is, you just look at what white civilizations were able to accrue, what they were able to achieve, what they were able to manifest. You look at all this, and because of their racial differences, white people, they think and they act differently than other races. They were able to move ahead a lot further and a lot faster, right? Instead of being upset about tradition to the point that you give a crap about a bird in this way, they gave more of a crap about just bigger things, bigger conceptual ideas to live out in pursuit of, right? And that includes so many things, just like enterprise for an economy. That's why something like the American dream was an idea. And it was never meant as an idea exactly for brown people and all these other demographics, but it was meant for a bunch of white people. That's what it was meant for, because America's a white country. So the ideal, the concept was an Anglo-Saxon premise. So of course the conclusion is intended for Anglo-Saxon. Now it's been monstrified ever since, because now Because of liberalism, we try to include everyone on the American dream, even though everyone is not equal and everyone cannot equally possess the American dream because no one is going to equally conduct themselves as a fellow white Anglo-Saxon, Caucasian, whatever. So that's the problem there. The American dream is rooted from an American, what is that? Anglo-Saxon premise. So because of that, I mean, that's just the problem, because and what I more specifically mean by this, for the peanut gallery, but no, seriously, if a black guy came down to the American dream, it would sound and look very different. And we already know what that looks like. It looks like Black Lives Matter. It looks like storming into the EU and pillaging stores and looting stores and killing people. That's what the air quotes American dream looks like to these other demographics, especially Africans. So again, the American dream, if it was constructed by other racial groups, it would look very different. That's why the American dream can only be tethered to Americans, which is what Anglo-Saxons, because remember this, race is politics. No matter how much people try to tell you that everyone's equal and blah, 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 it's never true. And people, they will think through life and they will rationalize reality based through their identity. Because why? Your identity represents your genetics. Give me a moment. Getting dehydrated like a freaking retard. Yeah, so anyways. Your identity represents your genetics. There's a reason why you look different than other people, and that's because you have different genetics than other people. It's not just phenotypes. It's not just, immutable characteristics. No, even your skin color represents something that's different about you, including your immune system. Different races have different immune systems. Why is that? Because different lineages, different racial backgrounds. And a lot of these different racial backgrounds, they come from different regions of the world. To some extent, race is a very interesting topic if we actually just be objective about it and look at it deeply for what it is. Because obviously races, they've moved around to different locations throughout history. They've never been in one place. Continents have shifted, all that stuff. Anyways, but we know, we have a rough idea, an estimation of what race is and what it means. So it's foolish to sit there and act like, you being black and some guy being white means nothing. It's like, okay, then explain why every time a white guy complains about something, he speaks very differently, no matter how long black people have been within, Britain or America. Black people always think and speak the same way, and they always vouch for very similar ethics to one another. And by the way, notice this, it's always interesting with blacks, they always make excuses for, guess what, criminality. Well, that's interesting. I thought there was no difference. And white people, wokeness is a disease and it's retarded. But for the most part, white people, woke white people, they only get upset about crime if they're told to be upset about it. Because again, leftism, I've spoken about this ad nauseum. And also we're looking past multiculturalism and the effects that it has on psychology. But outside of that, when we look within a vacuum, we look at white people, they get upset about criminality much differently than black people. Black people say, just live with it and deal with it. And white people are like, cut it out or something's going to be done about you. And that is a consistent difference in race. By majority, on average. So anyways, to sit there and say, it's just retarded to think that ethics looks the same across all demographics and that when one group says their ethics, then it means the same thing for other groups, right? The American dream, for instance. No, it's a white man's conception. It doesn't make it good or bad. Well, it happens to be good, but on its own basis, it doesn't make it good or bad. It's just that it's a white man's conception. And that if a black man came down to an idea of American dream or anything similar to it, adjacent to it, maybe African dream, it would look a lot different, okay? Simply speaking. So And we know what that looks like in a lot of historical contextual cues, especially regarding modern day and also regarding historical relevance. You know, you can just look throughout different time periods of African society and you will know very well. Anyway.
And treated their cousins within Japan. But as a Westerner, you're listening to this and probably thinking, why would he end himself? It's just a bird. Just go get another bird. And that, my friends, is why this whole discussion and these examples need to be presented.
Yeah, because race is politics. Yes, because people from different demographics, they think differently. And it, you know, and how are people so retarded? Like, obviously there's similarities between people across different races because human psychology is still human psychology, but it's like, it doesn't matter. The micro details still matter despite the macro. Macro human psychology, very similar in a lot of ways, right? Men across every culture, they all want hot, sexy women who are thin, they have nice breasts, nice butts, the whole thing, and typically don't have tattoos. But, and you can see that across every society, every single one. And they always want young, virginic women. Okay. Regardless, though, it's the micro that makes a lot of difference. Yes, macro affects the construction of civilization, but how that civilization is facilitated is determined by the micro, and the micro is determined by your race. Again, white people, Asian people, Muslim people, African, black, whatever people, and what's the other group? I don't know. There's another group. Indian people. They think very differently from one another. And then there's micros within the micro, right? There's Kenyans and there's Nigerians. There are Irish and then there are Italian. You can look at the micro within the micro within the micro, and this will create different civilization types. Even if many of them are similar or they have a lot of overlaps, ultimately there's a lot of similarity. On the macro, but a lot of difference within the micro. So despite similarity, there's difference in the micro, and that micro will eventually, the further that you pursue that micro, that will eventually compound into a civilization that looks very different, right? Because, right, okay, you gotta think about it like this. The further away that a target is, right? If you correct a boat on a course, the closer that your destination is, and I'm trying to think about this here. So the closer that your destination is to a boat, if you correct your course, you're going to make a lot less difference towards your landing point to the destination because of how close you are. But the further away that a location is, when you correct your course the same amount of degrees, you will end up at a much further location, right? And that's, of course, based on, it's simple, right? Your direction. Let's go from, I don't know. Forget it. I'm not going to go through that. So anyways, regardless of however many degrees you want to change direction in, right? You can keep the same degrees on direction, but depending on how far the distance of the destination is, your destination is going to look a lot different. It's going to be a lot further from course of direction, or, again, degree. When we have a civilization of Muslims, right, it's not going to look very different 20 years going into a Muslim civilization, going under Muslim ethics. And you might think they're very similar to a white civilization, right? You might think the two are very similar. But then once you're out 1,000 years, Muslim society, Anglo-Saxon society, most likely Christian, you will see giant differences between the two. Because the longer and the further you go on a course direction, and especially if you course direct a certain way, right, a certain number of degrees, your location, where you end up and what you're left with is going to look very different. Different races think differently. and where they end up down the road of whichever direction they happen to go based on their racial sentiments and sensitivities, their civilization will have different architecture, different technology, medicine practice. You can go down the list. It will look very different. Why is that? Because races are different. But of course, then you have all these retards. They sit there and they act like people are just similar. It's like, yes, if you want to look at people as far as they are concerned within the short term, you can say that people are super similar. But when you look at the macro over long term, and also the micro over long term, it happens to be wildly different. You know, I think at one point what I'm saying here was common sense, but it's like nowadays, again, you have to like re-educate the freaking retarded masses because liberalism has just absolutely effed up people's psychology.
So people understand, which is that cultures are different. They just are. You can complain, rebel, or say whatever you want, but ultimately there's a reason why every group of people have their own customs and ways. Now, take everything I just explained. Assassin's Creed Shadows, by the way, that takes place in 1579. Shogun, the show I just explained to you, that takes place in 1600.
By the way, the same thing goes for multiculturalism. When you do multiculturalism, when you engage with it as a civilization, you're not going to notice many differences 20 years in on your course direction. But the further out you go on your course direction, the destination's going to look a lot different than a civilization that is not multicultural. So, you go with a multicultural society for 500 years, or just let's say 100 years. Things are going to look a lot different than 20 years ago, which is what? 80 years in. It's going to look a lot different than 80 years ago, which is what? 20 years in. It's going to look progressively different, and eventually the reality of racist politics and what the races do to your politics and how does that construct civilization and where does it end up down the line, you're going to be revealed the truth of it all. But again, you don't notice any difference at first. Because, right, when you course direct from a specific location and the location's very close to you, you're not going to end up at a very different location.
Roughly 20 years after the events of Shadows, if we want a time frame here to compare. Now you tell me how Ubisoft has been respectful to Japanese culture when a show and novel like Shogun, which detail to excruciating details and degrees.
I mean, again, man, just look at what Asian Japanese culture is, just, you know, Chinese, whatever. You can look at any of these societies, they look very different than Anglo-Saxon societies. Their customs, everything. It's ridiculous how they behave. Like everything's just, you can just translate any society to the other.
Just how rigid.
Golly, man, liberals are freaking retarded and they think that they're geniuses. It's just amazing because it's like you just look at this stuff and it's like it's clearly different. The way that they think to make armor is different. It's unbelievable.
Culture was at the time would allow someone to run around not only killing citizens without remorse, but to desecrate holy sites? The answer is that it would not, and Ubisoft and the people defending these actions, or at the very least the ability to do so, do not understand how grave of an error this is on Ubisoft's part. I do hope I was able to show you why this needs to be respected. They're making a game during a time where people thought in the literal and customs were so strong and protected that you would be beheaded for speaking out. Again, actually, in Shogun, here's another example. There's one warrior that ends up having to commit seppuku early on during the series because he speaks out against his lord's equals in a conversation. Tadayoshi, that's the name of the samurai under the rule of Toranaga, the main character of Shogun. Like I said, he speaks out during a conversation in episode 1, and this is considered such a grave error on his part that not only is Tadayoshi forced to commit seppuku for dishonoring his lord, but his son, a literal baby by the way, is also given as sacrifice in payment, and the child's life is taken by government officials for speaking out against the lords within Japan during this conversation. Yeah, that happens. Is it insane? Absolutely. And if you're Tadayoshi forced to commit because he speaks out against his lord's equals in a conversation. Tadayoshi, that's the name of the samurai under the rule of Toranaga, the main character of Shogun. Like I said, he speaks out during a conversation in episode 1, and this is considered such a grave error on his part that not only is Tadayoshi forced to commit seppuku for dishonoring his lord, but his son, a literal baby by the way, is also given as sacrifice in payment, and the child's life is taken by government officials for speaking out against the lords within Japan during this conversation. Yeah, that happens. Is it insane? Absolutely. And if you're a Westerner watching this, which trust me, for me, it was crazy, but this is how strict Japan's
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's this idea that, I mean, they take absolute obedience and compliance so seriously, right? The idea is it's so vital to their culture that if you as a man commit, let's say, slander, defamation, or in this circumstance, you're committing to, oh shoot, is it insubordination? I think that's kind of what you can sort of say. I think it's insubordination. So yeah, that's what it sounds like. Even if it's not the most extreme, if you commit to insubordination, that must be rooted out genetically. And so your progeny, if the man does not correct it, or if he's not corrected, then the progeny must be corrected, which is like, right, because that's being spread down through family line. And it's taken to such a literal level that right now, currently, this man is willing and able to behave through insubordination. So then that means that whatever child that he's had up until now has a genetic tendency for insubordination. That's the idea. Or you can also think and say that it's that he's raising the child with the mindset, even if it's not genetic, he's conditioning that child because he thinks this way, he lives this way, he's insubordinate. The child that he's currently raising is going to have an idea of insubordination because they're being programmed this way by the father. So you execute the child in place of the father so that then the father, that's a punishment. You lose your progeny, you lose your line unless you correct your ways. And if you do not correct your nature of insubordination, then your children, well, either you will lose your life next or your children will continue to lose their life until you properly behave yourself. So the idea there is that the man himself must be proper before his children are proper. And they take that to the most literal and the most intensive extent that you can imagine, which is immediate execution, which is pretty insane because it's like, that child, because like this is true about a lot of people that like, yeah, if you have a certain type of father, that can definitely affect the children. And by the way, this is true. There's a lot of invisible psychological impacts that parents have on their children. So if you have a father that is easily emotional, for instance, and nowadays this is more common than it used to be, but if you have a father that you criticize him for something that he's actually done wrong, but he immediately gets fiery and he snaps back at you. And it could also be vice versa. He doesn't snap back. He's very compliant. He's kind of a doormat. It's one or the other. You probably have, and like, again, he gets fiery though. In this example, he gets fiery, he snaps back, he gets defensive. He might typically deflect or maybe gaslight you. Something that maybe a lot of women do, but for some reason your father's doing it, whatever. It could be a whole list of things. Or it's MMA hour. Hopefully it's not that. But anyways, you are very well likely going to mimic and mirror that, even if it could even be something like, by the way, there are things that happen when you are 2 years old, and there will be elements of your parents' psychology of how they typically behave that you don't think that you either respect or you don't even think that you behave in this way. You will not realize that there's a bunch of stuff that you picked up on. There are things that you will mirror from your parents, and it does not matter where you are in your developmental track, but honestly, it does appear that a lot of stuff that you see and a lot of stuff that you notice from the age of 0 to 2 years old, or maybe even 5, you pick up a lot of stuff and you will not realize. There will be a way, like you might not think that it's really funny, for instance, to be self-deprecating, but you might happen to try and whenever you socialize with people, you might notice that you always self-deprecate. If you pay attention to your parents, you might notice either your father or your mother. And I don't really know if it matters for boys or girls. So I kind of wonder, I need to think about, I get the sense that the father's psychology will make more of an impact on both the boy and the girl more than the mother. There's elements of the mother, but I think there's something about the mother's psychology that has a greater likelihood of impact, but I don't think most of it is impactful. But anyways, pay attention to one of your parents. I would say most likely the father. And just pay attention. Pay attention to how the father behaves. your father in this circumstance. And you will probably notice that whenever you start socializing with people, right? For some reason, you start self-deprecating, or maybe you start complaining more often than usual. Well, that's weird. Why do you do that? Notice how your parents, how they socialize with people when you're just out and about with them or whatever. Notice how they exchange with other people, and you will notice, holy crap, they typically never like make self-deprecating jokes until they're talking with other people, until they're trying to socialize and get someone to like them. Then they self-deprecate. And then you look at yourself and you're like, what the frick? I do that. And you're like, well, I never even thought of doing that. I was never taught to do that. No one ever told me. And that's because there's a bunch of invisible psychological triggers and cues that will make an impact onto you by your parents or people that happen to fulfill the parent role as you're growing up. And you will never realize this until you grow older. And if you can also, when you grow older, if you can analyze if that person's still alive or whatever, and you can happen to analyze their behavior and you have a proper incident to see this, then you will see it and you'll be like, holy effing crap. Because also you have to pay attention to when your parent is being the most authentic to who they are, because maybe around you, they're not always authentic. So you have to somehow catch them in a scenario where their guard is down, and maybe you're around, but their guard is down for whatever reason. Could be that they're on a phone call. Just think of some, or you're at some location and maybe they're doing a hobby, right? Like a shooting range, and they just happen to open up around shooting ranges, whatever it is. Then you see that behavior express itself because that's actually who they are. Maybe they're not putting up a shield to you, or maybe they never put up a shield to you. It just really depends on your relationship. But whatever it is, you will notice that behavior in one of your parents. And when you notice it, you'll be like, what the F? It's crazy. So it's like, even though that seems crazy, what we're talking about here, oh, they executed a child for a father's child for him being insubordinate. Well, happens to be that that's actually a psychological truth. There's a lot of children that happen to pick up on at a young age, and they will not be aware of it. They will pick up on a lot of these psychological triggers through their parents, and either it's genetic or it is through programming, or it's a mixture of both. And it's probably a mixture of both because genetics, by the way, does matter a lot. But it's really weird because genetics and programming, they have a really weird confluence because both are very valid. Both are very, what's the term for it? Both are very expressive. Your genetics are very expressive in who you are, but it's like, it's very selective. So like maybe you're a very angsty individual and that can be genetic, but then maybe, right, you self-deprecate in certain social situations. Well, that's programming, right? So there's certain things, certain extremes of your personality that are shown through either your programming, through environment, or through a family, social environment, and or your genetics. So it really depends on a whole number of factors. It's like, it makes sense why this would be something that has ever happened in Japanese culture, because this is absolutely true. Like, there are so many things that will pass down from father to child.
Customs are. It's like the current world equivalent of two CEOs speaking, and then a manager speaks up and says, let my CEO talk, you've talked enough. And now you got to end yourself and your firstborn as payment to the CEO you just spoke out against.
Yourself and the firstborn? Well, dang. Well, yeah, okay, well, yeah, so they take it to the extreme that, okay, this guy, he's never going to correct himself, and then the child has definitely picked up on his behavior, so then both of them die. So you're rooting out corrupt behavior out of civilization. See, and that's where, like, I definitely see a lot of problem in that. I think that the way that white civilizations have conducted themselves is better because you need to be a defiant individual like the founding fathers were, right? For proper reason. And that's everything about their rhetoric is for proper reason, defy authority. But nowadays, it's freaking retarded with white people. But, at one point it made sense. Before white people started thinking more like women because of feminism. But yeah, I mean, I don't really respect that way of thinking. as a way of organizing society, but it's much better than liberalism. That's absolutely true. But like, I think that the way that traditional white men, how they regard civilization, because you need to be the right mixture of obedient but also defiant, and that creates a lot of what white civilizations are. Because you can look at a lot of European countries, a lot of European republics, or and a lot of princes of feudal Europe. And it was a constant mixture of proper balancing between defiance and obedience to your master, right? Your king, your prince of the region. And again, white people did it better when men were in charge. Nowadays, women are basically in charge of white people. And really it's against the will of white men. Well, except for the cucks. But anyways, in The Sims. But you know, I respect this much more than liberalism, but holy crap. I mean, I do think that white people, once upon a time, well, again, traditional white men, they did it better.
And again, this is a story that is based on real historical customs and texts that takes
But it is respectable for what it is.
place 20 years after Shadows. Basically, Ubisoft screwed up really badly here, allowing these things to even exist in their game pretty much to begin with. And they have absolutely no care or want to understand the people of Japan or their customs with Shadows, and that is very clear. As for people claiming that Ubisoft is in the right here and the Japanese players are wrong,
Yeah, you're bringing Western sentiments to a Japanese culture, which, again, we have a random, ugly monster woman. I mean, do you really think the Japanese are going to look at that and be like, oh, that makes sense? No, the women in Japan are freaking feminine, bro. They are obedient to the men overwhelmingly. Yeah, you know, that's feminism is seeping into Japan, so we got a lot of problems there, but you know.
you frankly just don't understand Japanese culture at all. And look, I'm no master of their culture either. But even I know that if a literal foreigner clad in samurai armor ran around killing citizens and desecrating historical sites in 1579 was something that actually happened, Yasuke would be found, quartered, and fed to the wolves for his transgressions, and that's probably the least of the damage they would do to him before killing him. Hopefully this video has shown you why this is such a grave mistake on Ubisoft's part, and maybe if someone doesn't understand it, you can share this video to them so they can too understand as well. Even in Ghost of Tsushima, you can't desecrate historical sites. You can only attack enemy Mongols and other enemy types like rabid animals. Because at least Sucker Punch knew how ridiculously out of touch they would be if they allowed such heresies to exist in their Japanese open-world adventure game. In the end, people need to understand that sometimes if you don't know what's—
Isn't it funny how you have to appeal to multiculturalism, which is what? You are an outsider. You need to understand the inside of outside culture, which is multiculturalism, right? Make sense of other people's societies for yourself. It's funny that you have to appeal to multiculturalism, which is what? Egalitarian, liberal, progressivist politics. You have to appeal to that way of thinking in order to make an argument to a liberal, which means that you're still pushing a liberal argument. Isn't that interesting? You can't just sit there and say, you're being stupid. This is about their country. You can't just stand on having a conservative argument. And I'm not saying that's the only conservative argument to have, but at some point you just got to stand on conviction and just say that these people who are stupid, call them what they are, stupid. You can't apparently just do that. You have to kiss up to their tail and be like, oh, see guys, you're not understanding it. You're not multicultural enough, but in a more conservative way, multicultural. So again, as I've said, neoliberals, which are what? Conservatives. I've said this many times. These are the people who are, they're basically liberal conservatives.
going on that you should maybe shut up and not say anything.
He's appealing to liberal conservative ways of thought.
Instead, this entire controversy is not overblown. Japanese people absolutely have every right to be upset. And if you think otherwise, just know that if you're not Japanese, it's not really your place to dictate whether actual—
I mean, everyone has a right to be upset about this. This is stupid. Again, it's just dumb. Like, this is a proper conservative argument to have. This is just stupid. This is just dumb. You believe that societies and cultures are so relative that you can put in a Japanese game a freaking black guy to represent a Japanese man in Japanese culture. Yeah, a black man is not an Asian man. An African is not equal to a Japanese guy. This is stupid. Live within reality for your Japanese game. Give us a freaking Japanese main character. There you go. Yeah, you're not going to win over liberals with that because they want to believe everything's relative. But this is the thing, is that it's enough. Why do you believe that you need to constantly play to liberal ways of thought and arguments to win the conversation? Why do you think you have to do that? because that just means that you're playing on their frame. You're playing in their corner. You're giving them all the power. It's like, oh, well, you're agreeing that multiculturalism is super important. So, yeah, you're right. I should be more tolerant of their society. And I can't believe I impose myself from my society onto their society. That whole thing. And by the way, there is a blur in all this that we're talking about here that is just apolitical. But I mean, again, like, it is conservative to just say that they should sustain their own culture and that a random outsider should not define their culture. That is conservative. And there's nothing wrong with that argument. Black man does not represent Asian man. This is stupid and retarded. And you can say other things like it's just dumb. It's legitimate, or you can say that this is malicious. This is malicious to sit here and say that Japanese men should be represented by black men. That is a conservative argument. Why? You're sustaining the basis of what a Japanese civilization is, rather than deconstructing it. Anyways, guys, that's the end of it. I went way longer on this video than I planned, but you know, this is what happens when I start raging and ranting. It turns into a 2-hour video. What the frick? Do not forget Charles Arlington on Amazon. Please, if you guys appreciate what I'm doing here, because I mean, I go into all this detail because, well, I think it's worth it to go into it and provide all this information and to process and reason through all this. But seriously, guys, I don't do this channel just to do it. I do this because I've written books for you and I'm coming out with more. But I do this to get the word out to you guys. You are my audience. I do not make my crap for gays and feminists. Yeah, sure, they could read my stuff, but I don't care. Everything's made for the gays and feminists today. Nothing is made for men. I make my crap for you guys. Okay? Everything's gay and woke now. Movies, games. If you guys want proper stories, pick up my stuff. And then, oh, that's funny. Watermelon. Fried chicken. Okay, that's funny. That's a funny thumbnail. That is really funny. But anyways, but guys, again, seriously, if you want to show that you appreciate what I'm doing here, please pick up my work. I made it for you guys. If you love anything like Star Wars, you love Lord of the Rings, I went out of my way to be creative, make something new, and recapture that energy and that fire of imagination that you loved so much from past properties that gave to you what you wanted. That's why I do what I do. I want to bring back the love and the enamor that you had for old fiction that captured your mind. Okay? That's why I do what I do, because I want to give to you proper characters and proper stories. So pick up my stuff. Again, it's meant for adult men largely, but also it could be for, you know, teenage boys. It's made with a mature mindset. I don't make my crap to infantilize you. So again, please pick up my stuff because, I mean, seriously, I literally did it for you guys. And if you guys don't show that you appreciate me, then I'm just going to be done with this channel. It's just that simple. And I'm going to be doing other things with my time. So just being honest. And I really hope, I want to be your guys' solution. I really care about this. And that's why it matters to me. But there's a lot of other things I can be doing with my time. And I want to fix wokeness in storytelling, because it's not just that I can do it. It's the fact that I am the best at this. I'm not joking with you. You want the next Star Wars? You want the next whatever? It's right here, bro. So anyway, on to the next video.